All right, we are live back with another installment of the National Treasure Series from 2023. It's everybody's favorite episodes that we do during the year. We kind of recap the National, and we try to bring in all walks of life, right? We try to be as diverse as we can, not just with the folks that come in, but with how they experience the National. And this was one I had to include, right? We have people who run auction houses, we have people who set up at booths, with people who are starting a business, people who have been in business for a long time. But I happen to run into Jake, 90's B-ball cards, if you could check it out on Instagram. I had to run into him in a hotel lobby. I'd come back from the show. I was, gonna go get changed and go to one of the many dinners that go on at these nationals. And we had a conversation, brief, where he opened my eyes to something, right? And I definitely want to make sure that I get that story out. But without further ado, a minute in, Jake, 90's basketball cards, thank you very much for joining. Welcome.
Cage, it's an honor to be on this.
He's frozen with that smile.
Yeah, sorry, we'll probably be fighting through a little bit.
I'm happy to have you.
Yeah, I'm honored. It's been a pleasure watching these series. So happy to be joining you for it, and sharing any sort of little bits of information that I've picked up along the years. I was happy to do that.
Well, how many nationals is this for you?
This
wasn't your first.
This was my third, so not too many.
Nice. So right off the bat, right? Give me so you've done this one, Atlantic City, and the Chicago one before that?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so give me a comparison. Give me something that you saw at this one that was an upgrade. Something that was, like, wow, this is different from the last two.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's an upgrade, but I mean, so the sheer volume in terms of space and participants, attendees, and that's a double-edged sword, I think, but it was definitely much bigger in both terms than the prior two, by leaps and bounds. And I think without the additional space, the crowds would have been really, really an obstruction to the ability to, do anything that you want to do at the National. There were a lot of people complaining about the crowds. But imagine if we didn't have that extra space, how those crowds would feel. It'd been really rough.
So they set it up that way to kind of be overflow, right? To kind of manage the crowds, because it was just the same amount of space that was in Chicago previously a couple of years ago. It would have been too crowded. And even at some points, I found myself not going down a certain path because I knew it would take me half an hour to navigate my way back out. But you said double-edged sword, so you open up that can of worms. I'll just ask it right out. Do you think it's too big?
So it was... The prior 2 years, the first year in 21 in Chicago, I did not feel overwhelmed, even though it was my first, because I'd seen so much content, people sharing the show, the layout, walking the floor. I felt a little bit more familiar with the space. So I did not feel overwhelmed. There were times that I kind of had to take a break, but walking in, I wasn't like, oh my goodness, where am I going? What do I do with my hands? Same feeling in Atlantic City, right? I walked in, I had seen some stuff from, I think, 2016 when it was there. I felt comfortable and confident walking through, was easy to get my bearings. This year, when I first walked in Wednesday morning, I just stood there with my eyes open, my mouth agape. So it was a lot. Usually I can get through the entire floor, kind of see what I want to see and start picking off some stuff on my checklist in 2 days. That was not possible this year. Not even close.
I think you say overwhelmed. That's 100% the right word. And it's a conversation I've probably had a dozen times with various people who were there, from dealers who people found them on the last day of the show. We're like, I wish I would have found you earlier. I would have just bought from you. I bought that car for more money over there. I bought this. And,
right.
It's funny to think about that. And I guess we'll just jump right in. So when I saw you in the hotel lobby, you showed me some of the cards that you picked up.
Yep.
And I have to tell you, a little envy, a little jealousy. This is kind of the way it works. You picked up a penny. I'm not going to throw out there what it is because I don't know if you want it out there. But I saw this card and I was like, you know what? If I saw this card at the show, I would have bought this. Like, that is a cool card. I'm like, this is a cool penny card. Like, I would add that to, the PC box that just hangs out in the room that you don't take out again to try to sell. It's just cool. And when you want to look at your cards, that was one. Like, and you don't see it too often. And I'm like, how in the hell did this guy find that card? Because I found myself like, let me look at this table. Let me look at this table. And it's like, it's like a cat watching a tennis match. It's just, it's like one of these kind of things. what is it that you did
Mm.
so that you were able to target these specific cards, 90s basketball cards? I mean,
Yep.
hey, it's in the name, right? What is it that you did? And share it with the folks.
Yeah. So a few things. I think the first thing is really in preparation. Two things are in preparation. The first thing, and I decided this going into 2021. I have a very narrow focus when I'm at the national, because people who look at my page and see some of the stuff I share, my pyramid, my PC pyramid. I have a lot of side PCs. It's very easy for me to get distracted on eBay or elsewhere. But I have a very laser focus of I'm searching for pennies. I'm walking around to booths. I see 90s stuff. I ask, you got any pennies? Right. I'm just focused on pennies. And if something else,
he means Penny Hardaway. He's not doing the penny to a Michael Jordan rookie challenge. He's not an
right.
influencer
The
who
trade up
penny up off the floor and somehow walks out of the show an hour later with a Michael Jordan 86 Flair PSA 10.
Right.
Because that is reality. He's talking about Anthony Penny Hardaway. Okay.
The GOAT.
Proceed.
The GOAT. Yes. So there's a lot of other stuff that I'll pick up, but 99% of the stuff I'm picking up is Penny Hardaway, because that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm laser focused on. The other preparation that I do is and I don't remember. I wish I could give the person the flowers that they deserve, but I got this idea from somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I take a map, the actual map that's on the national website, and I go into PowerPoint. I put little icons on the various booths that I know I've either dealt with in the past. I know they have 90s. I've heard, places that I want to make sure I go and see. And then as soon as I get in on Wednesday, I start checking off those spots, right? And they're all spread out throughout the venue. So I'm going to see stuff on my way there, and I'm going to miss stuff on my way there. But I make sure that I hit all those places because I know that there's a higher probability that they're going to have some of the stuff that I'm looking for. So the third thing that I did this year differently is I actually made a video, and I was a little bit nervous doing this, but of the top 5 cards that I was looking for at the National. And what that did is, first off, it let me have that opportunity to do some of that research. So I kind of knew as much as I could or needed to know going into the National about those cards and if it showed up and all that kind of stuff. But it also kind of put out the APB to other people.
Mm-hmm.
So other people were seeing that. And obviously that's another double-edged sword, right? Because it could be putting out the APB so somebody can pick up that card and then, get more from me for it.
Yeah. So split that into two things, guys. I mean, there's so much to unpack here. It's a full episode. Number one, taking the affirmative step to pull the map of the National off of the webpage. People listen to that and like, forget it. This is not something I'd ever do. Why? It didn't take that long, and it's a really smart idea, right? Because I went into the show and was like, oh, I wonder where am I going to go now? What am I going to see? And by the time I hit the corporate booth, I was just like, ooh, carpet on my feet. I'm just never leaving, and it's easy to keep a fat guy in your area. Just carpet it, So,
right.
but so that's one. And then to think I'm going to mark off in that map the let's call them the good fishing areas, right? The places where the catfish might be hanging out under the rock, like the places you've dealt with before. And so you make sure you check those off and make sure you hit those, because there's a better likelihood of you finding something that's there. That's one. Two, it's not just you, because I saw a lot of this, right? I saw a lot of, here's my list of what I'm looking for at the National, my top 5 cards. Now, before you get into, and we can talk about the back and forth, the positive and the negative of someone might try to snipe this from you now, because if you're looking for it, they want to be looking for it too. I think the real value in that is laser focusing yourself, because you had to now think to yourself, all right, what are the cards that I'm looking for? So many people ask me, what are you looking for at the National? And my answer was like, I have no idea. Fun? A sponsor? I'm like, I don't. What are you supposed to say? By the way, National Treasures 2023 series is sponsored by me. I'm like Ricky Bobby in this. I'm just throwing that out there. Okay,
you're not first, you're last.
I'm racing for me, and I am first. So, but think about that for a second, right? So now you've spent hours in the lead up in your own brain, weeding out that 6th or 7th or 9th card that didn't make the cut, so that you're now going, these are the ones I want to find, and I'm going to keep looking for them throughout the show, so that okay, blinders on, this is what I'm looking for. Sure, it's very possible somebody sees that and is like, I got to it first, but you know what? They're probably just looking for it to give it to you. You know what I mean? So maybe it costs you a little more money, but they just did you a favor. You don't have to hunt it down. They're going to buy it and message you. I found it. All right. Now, if they try to rake you over the coals for it, the hell with them. I don't like that person at all. But I love the prep that is. I love that you're there as a consumer, but you're doing the same type of work and prep that someone who's setting up at the show would be doing. It's like pricing your cards. It's figuring out the comps. It's targeting what you're going to put in your showcase. It's the same kind of stuff, but in the reverse. And I loved hearing that because most people are like me. We're just big, dumb idiots showing up for the spectacle of it. And when you go there without that list, without that targeted focus that you had, without the map, it's easy for the shiny skee ball to throw you off course. I'm like, oh, I have to go over here. Like, there's a claw machine. Like, look at this thing. Someone's selling fudge. Right?
Right. Yeah. No, and it's funny because in that early period of Wednesday, I did stumble across a booth that had a penny card there that I almost bought in 2021. I didn't have a chance in 2022, so, but it wasn't on my top 5. So, so one of the things that I'll do while I'm in the show is if I see a card that I'm interested in, usually, strike up a conversation with the dealer, all that type of stuff. And if I'm not ready to make a move on it yet for any multitude of reasons, I'll ask them first, can I take a picture of this? I'll take a picture of it, and I'll send a text message to myself with the picture of the card, the booth number, and if there's an asking price. So that way, as I'm going through the week, I can kind of circle back. I'll use that as kind of like my notepad, and I can go back. And sometimes those cards are gone, right? I didn't act fast enough. But if I don't do that, then those cards that I had on my top 5 list, I'll go and start getting, like you said, number 6, number 15, number 12. And then by the time I see number 2,
you're done.
I'm out.
You don't have the money. You've gone off kilter here.
Right.
You're on tilt. It's like, I found it. I didn't think I was going to see this one, and you're diverting from your plan. And sometimes that's fun, right?
Sure.
I didn't have a plan to open 150 junk wax packs when I got to the National, but I did it anyway. Right. You see me on Saturday. I found one of these like booths with a garbage pail in the back, and I'm just
yep.
One of the base cards. I'm like a blackjack dealer. Base. Oh, Bo Jackson.
Yeah, and like I'll loosen up the reins on myself when I'm going through dollar bins, which is I love doing that, and I usually start each morning going through dollar bins, and I was going through with one of our friends, Kyle from Wax Museum, like some 10-cent bins, and I picked up Star Trek cards. Like I've got one here of Whoopi Goldberg as Guinan, right? I love Star Trek stuff, and it's 10 cents, right? And it's just like I can have some fun there, and I can go into all these other things. It's like I have no desire to spend a lot of money on that stuff or a lot of time, but I'm there, and it's fun. And I can show that to my mother-in-law, who calls her, instead of calling her Whoopi Goldberg, she calls her Hoopy. So hey Ma, I got a Hoopy for you, and she gets kicked out of that. So
I mean, listen, it could be worse. She could call her Andrew Goldberg. So I mean, listen, we got fun stuff. Listen. I went there. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but at some point I found myself opening 1993 Skybox packs and pulling Blue Bledsoe cards. And I collected them. Like, this was like, oh my God, I'm a kid again. You know what I mean? Like, this is amazing, for $1. Like, that's fun,
Yeah.
So, but it's not targeted. And I loved what you brought to it. So you're giving flowers to whoever it was who put the idea in your brain to be targeted on this stuff. And I know there's someone listening who's going to take this advice, and I'm going to be even once ever, I will do it. It's like, there will never be another National I go to again without a list of the couple of things that I want to hit while I'm there and a better preparation. I think Cleveland will be a little easier because the show space is much easier to navigate.
That's what I've heard.
It's smaller. It's about 60% of what we had here this past year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's much smaller. So people are going to have to do more with less on the show floor, and the hotels are nowhere near it. So you have to be more economical with your time. Everybody's driving. There's rental cars like crazy. It's a very different show experience than what you have at Chicago. Chicago's great. And I'm going to give some flowers to Atlantic City. Atlantic City, people hate going there, and obviously it is what it is. But the show space, the event space itself is actually very good.
I was saying to a lot of people, Atlantic City, once you're in the venue, with the exception of the Wi-Fi, it's better, right? So there's that one caveat to that space is the Wi-Fi, but once you're inside of there, you're good. Everything else around it, and so the biggest thing for me, and I'm local relatively, I'm in New England, getting there is a pain.
Yeah, there's
It's
no
just there's
airport.
no easy way to get there. You taking a bus to Atlantic City, that's not the greatest. You're taking train and then hopping on this. There's just no easy way unless you're going to drive yourself.
Which is what
And
I
then
do.
you've got your car there all
Yep.
week and you're going to pay to park or you're going to drive, so like there's it's Chicago makes things really easy. So,
Yep. Yeah. I rented a car, drove it, parked it, walked, drove it around a little bit. It was,
yeah.
an interesting experience. So, all right. So you walked around the show. You talk about flowers to the guy who created whoever this is, the mystery person. How about somebody real? Something you saw at
Mm.
the show that you're like, wow, this person's doing this the right way, or this company's doing this the right way, or wow, I got to take a minute to go check out what they're doing over here. Anything like that where you had to stop and
Yeah, so
look?
I really enjoyed the card ladder booth. Um
A little
and
oasis, right? A little place to just
exactly.
stop, right?
The only negative, and they had no control over this, is they were right next to the main stage, so it did get very loud. But
Yep.
it was such a nice spot to be able to meet up with people, tell people, "Hey, I'm over here." It was close enough to the PSA booth, so if people didn't know where the card ladder booth was, you could say, "Oh, I'm next to the PSA booth," and they immediately knew where you were. They had chairs and charging stations. The only thing I did say this to Christina, I feel like, and this is an idea for somebody else, I'm sure they're not going to run with it, is if somebody set up a booth and had like a station for chair massaging,
Uh,
I
okay.
mean, you could make a lot of money. I'm just saying, I would be there a lot.
I would
So
pay you to give me a massage, sure. So that's a good idea. Go for it, Jake. Let's go.
I don't know if you
A
want my hands
little
on you after I've been going
shiatsu,
through, right.
little fun stuff.
After I've been going through those dollar bins, my hands are a little grimy.
I mean,
So,
the 10-cent bins I'd pass. After
yeah,
that,
yeah.
we're in some trouble. No, but I mean, listen, it's funny. Their location was great because I found myself like walking past, seeing Chris, telling him my woes.
Hmm.
My slab was deactivated. I'm on my way to fix it, and then walking back the other way, they fixed it. It's all good. Like and
Yep.
you were able to kind of like fill people in. It was always buzzing that they had that. You're right. As good a location as it was bad. Right next to PSA, right in the middle of everything, but also right next to the main stage, which
I made sure to bring over some Excedrin,
you could heckle.
sure. Yeah.
You could heckle from
Well,
there.
and so the nice thing too that I think with the card ladder booth is they were there to answer questions, but they weren't there pitching, shoving it. It was literally just a space to like relax and chill. And if people had questions, they would answer them, but they weren't pushy with anything, which
I give
is
them a lot of
nice.
credit. When Drake's PC was up on stage, they had an opportunity to return the favor with a very lengthy question, and they did. They didn't. They could have. They very easily could have taken that opportunity for all the crossover questions.
I know. Yeah, no, it was a good space. So I would give them flowers in terms of other collectors. Boy, like there's so many people I could mention that I had a great time meeting for the first time, reconnecting with. I
Okay,
would,
that's good. You don't have to single anybody out,
yeah.
but let's talk about that for a second, right? Because you bring a different perspective to this National Treasure Series than, somebody who's there, a CEO of an auction company,
Mm,
or somebody who's there, doing, content or whatever it might be, right? You're there as a collector. How much of it is the cards, and how much is the chance to catch up with people who you talk to on IG, who are in the chats with you, who are, in the crossover chats where telling jokes and the whole deal. How much of it has become that where the national shorts about the cards and the memorabilia and and the museum pieces
hmm.
that are there, but it's also getting together with folks. I mean, I saw you with a crew of people just in the hotel lobby catching up. That's got to be almost as fun, if not more fun, as going through a dime box and getting a Whoopi Goldberg, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the Whoopi Goldberg is definitely a highlight, so um it's- so yeah, I agree. Like the people are just as much of a draw for me as the cards. And it ebbs and flows throughout the show, right? There are certain times where like I'm off on my own, I'm doing my, treasure hunting, looking through stuff. And there's other times when I'm walking around with somebody and, we're looking at stuff that is cool to look at, not really my PC focus, but we're spending time together and we're chatting and I'm learning. That's the other thing too, is like walking around with people that have different collecting interests than me. I learn so much when they like point out, oh, did you know this about this card? And it's always an even exchange, right? Because we all bring different knowledge to our collecting journeys and can share that with people. So yeah, but like every single year, I'm like, meeting new people, and like after the national, it's just like you feel like you've gained so many new friends. It's almost like a college atmosphere in the sense that, like, when we're in our undergrad years, right, you're surrounded by peers that we all have a lot of stuff in common. You're hanging out with them, your weekends are busy, you're socializing a lot. And as we're adults and we've got kids and we've got jobs, like, your social life starts to take a little bit of a backseat. And at the national, it's like, oh, you get that little jolt of
The college
socialization
reunion.
back. Exactly.
Back, you're hanging out, you're seeing old friends who you don't get to see except for that one time a year or twice a year where you get to, reconvene. We all get to be nerds. And listen,
Right.
there's a saying, right? In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Well, the national, I'm going to coin a phrase. Since we're all nerds, we're all cool. Right?
Exactly.
I mean, you got a room full of nerds over there. We're all equally as cool hanging out with our Star Trek cards. For
exactly.
Way of saying
well,
it.
so that's a different level of nerd, but that's nerd. There's layers.
Nerd squared.
Yeah, exactly. No, and it's true too, because like I was talking to some other people, and statistically speaking, people on the whole are typically more introverted than extroverted, right? And one of my buddies that usually travels with me, he didn't make the trip this year, was giving me a hard time after the first year. And he's like, "You are not an introvert. You keep saying that." It's like, no, I took the Myers-Briggs assessment. Like, I know, who I am and what I am. But the fun thing is like the cards are that like social lubricant that allows for a lot of these exchanges, because it's really easy to walk up to somebody at National and say, "How's your show been? What have you picked up? Can I see some cards?" Right? And it's like you don't have that, that awkwardness that a lot of introverts experience when you're in, a unfamiliar setting, and you're at a family birthday party, and three people there, and it's like, oh geez, I'm at the punch bowl, and how do I? Oh geez,
the cards are the icebreaker, right?
Exactly.
The cards are the icebreaker. I mean, it's 100% correct. Speaking of the cards, I mean, if you want to share, pick up anything fun, pick up anything.
Oh
cool.
Yeah. So I will. This is breaking news. I'm going to break it here. You've seen it. Seen it. If you want to hear the whole story about the pickup, I will be making a video later on this week.
Nice.
So the big one for me this last week was the 97 game jersey of Penny.
I wish I saw that before you. Such a nice card.
And it's one of those cards that it's rare. It's not like, PMG green rare that there's only 10. So it's a little bit surprising that I only saw that one. And the only
the jersey's nice.
And the blue jersey is the specific one that I wanted. So some people watching this might say, but it's a BGS 5. So here's the thing. You flip it over on the back. This is an old label. So you've got the subgrades on the back. It's not one of the ones that somebody cheaped out and didn't get the subgrades on it. I would love if people could guess when that card was slabbed, but I'll save you the suspense and let you know.
I guessed. I was 1 year off.
You were very, very. You were the closest. I asked a few different people to guess, and you were the closest by far. I didn't even guess it, right? So Chris from Card Ladder is actually the one that looked it up and told me that thing was slabbed in 2002. So it's been in that slab for over 20 years. So it's going to stay in that slab. And the reason that it got a 5 is because it got dinged on the surface. And people who know, Beckett was really tough on the grades back in their early days. So a 5 on that, I would imagine if I was to crack it and sub it again, it probably would get a little bit better. But it being PC, it makes no difference to me. And it was a typical issue where those windows for the patch typically have creasing around them and stuff like that. And that's the issue on this one, is a crease around that patch window. So it doesn't bother me. And where it is, it's very well hidden. So it doesn't take away from the eye appeal. This one also has two white stripes rather than one. Typically they have one down the middle. This one is, so it hit a lot of extra nice things for me. And I didn't need to tell the dealer that I don't care if it's a BGS 5.
Right. It's a great negotiator for you.
Exactly. So
that
was the big pickup. But I mean, I've got no shortage. Like here, I'll show you the stack of stuff that I picked up, so there's a lot of that. And yes, Hoopy is in there as well. So she counts. So there was no shortage of fun head, but that was definitely the highlight for me.
So people measure shows success differently by how they go there, right? I mean, some dealers, it's very easy to measure a successful show because I went there with these cards and I left with no cards and
Mhm.
I made money, and I was able to not only cover the expense for myself and the people I brought, but I was able to make some money. That's a successful show. So you're a collector. Does picking up that penny and that other stack would you consider this a successful show for you?
Yeah, I mean, if I just picked up that penny, that would be a success. If I just picked up that stack or half of that stack, it would be a success. Like, it was a success in a lot of different ways. So, yes, many multitudes of success for myself. And I go with cards. I brought a bunch of them home. I dealt a bunch of them to other collectors and stuff like that. So, like, I always bring stuff that I like trading. That's kind of the fun of cards for me. I get really a lot of enjoyment out of trading. But if any of the cards come home with me, I'm not mad at that. But it was really cool. Like, some of the cards that I moved to other collectors and seeing them get into the right PCs really brought me a lot of satisfaction. So, and there was one that I actually made a video with Chris, and I was talking about an Allen Iverson rookie auto that I had to learn a little bit more about, and I shared some of that information on that video. I ended up trading that with another collector who I've made deals with him and his father. His father put together a master set of the 96 scoreboard autograph set. He has
Wow.
all the autographs, all the Kobe's, every version, but he didn't have that one Iverson. He didn't even know it existed. So when I shared with him the story, because he's like, he pulled that out and he's like, what's the story here? Because I have the master set and I don't have this one. So is this real? So we talked about it, and he was like, now that I know about that card, I need it as part of the master set. And I was like, you do, and you have a card that I want for it. So perfect, even swap. And it's where it needs to be.
I mean, no better way to end than that, but we won't end on that because I got one more for you. And, it's a lot of fun. I missed the trade night this year because I had a dinner and because when I was walking back from the show, it's a little late. It took me 40 minutes waiting for the Beckett guy to return his slabs to folks, and I needed to get my picture. And I'm walking back and I see the line. It was huge. You talk about trading. I regret that I
Mm,
missed that at the show because I didn't get to see Ryan. I didn't get to see Card Collector 2. He wasn't set up, so I didn't have a chance to say hi to him. And that's something I will rectify at I will make sure I get to
mhm.
the trade night because I brought stuff to trade. I had a stack of cards to trade and stuff. There's, too many things to do, and it's difficult to schedule wise. Is there anything you missed while you were there? Anything you regret?
Oh, there's so much. I mean, you mentioned some, like, Ryan. I was at trade night. I didn't get a chance to see him. Jimmy, I didn't get a chance to say hi to him. Like Ivan, who I had on my channel talking about the national. 3 years I've been to the national. I've never met Ivan in person. We've talked a ton online.
No.
So, like, the number one thing that always comes to mind is there's always people that I didn't spend enough time with, or I didn't get the chance to say hi to. I was at trade night. There was so much activity. I feel like I probably saw like 5% of what there was to see there. So, like, I missed out on stuff there. There were giveaways in the corporate area. I don't spend a lot of time in the corporate area, so I missed out on stuff there.
Yeah, I didn't get a pack. I didn't get like a national pack or a silver pack. I mean, it's
Yeah,
making content. They're opening up $20,000 Corbin Carroll 101 autographs. I'm like, where were these cards? Like, I
right.
didn't even see them.
Right. There were even penny cards that I missed out on. There even with the map and all the prep I did, there were two specific cards. One of them the dealer couldn't remember. I found out afterwards what it was, that I would have, if I had found them before other collectors did, I would have bought them and been very happy to have gotten them in my collection, and they're for good prices and all that. So, like, there's tons of stuff. There's so much, like you said, going on. There's only so much time that you can't see everything, you can't do everything, you can't get every card. So that's where it comes down to priorities, and making those priorities and just kind of checking off what the top ones are.
So we'll close it with this because we're both in the same boat. To anybody that was there and we didn't get to see, just send us a message. We'll make sure we find you next time. We apologize. There's so much stuff going on. I got a lot of that. I wish I would have seen you. I wish I would have seen you this time. There's a lot going on. I wish I would have seen every one of you. I know Jake does as well.
Mhm.
Guys, take a look. It's 90s. It's on the screen if you watch it on YouTube. It's at 90s _B-ball _cards. He makes great content, real educational stuff. I learn something every time I watch it. I appreciate having you on. Thank you very much. You are a national treasure.
Thanks.